new poll out this morning it's a jaw dropper. The Economist and YouGov.com essentially reran the last election. It was a rematch with the president versus Mitt Romney. And according to the results, if the election were held today, Mitt Romney would actually beat Barack Obama. Mitt Romney would get 55 million votes, Barack Obama 52 million votes. As for the people who have voted for the president, they're having second thoughts.
Right. This accounts for 71% of Obama voters. Look at this. It says 55 Democrats regret voting for his re-election. And then out of the poll, 80% of whites said, when asked, that they did regret voting for President Obama. And then in terms of African Americans, 39% regretted it. Hispanics, 100% of Hispanic voters polled here regretted their vote.
100% of the Hispanics that were polled regretted voting for President of the United States.
Chemical spill in West Virginia, a coal ash dump in North Carolina, and 14,000 other oil spills that happened over the last year. Residents of Bobtown, Pennsylvania, are the latest victims of America's addiction to dirty energy. Last week, a tanker at a fracking well owned by Chevron exploded and caused an enormous fire that lasted 5 entire days. Michelle Poppernack, a Bobtown resident half a mile from the explosion, told a local CBS affiliate, "It was very, very scary. You knew somebody had to be hurt somewhere with that explosion." Well, she was right, because at least one person near the accident site is presumed to be dead. This latest tragedy highlights the many other dangers associated with the practice of hydraulic fracturing, including artificial earthquakes and birth defects. So, what is Chevron doing to quell the worries of this shaken-up town? Are they upping their safety regulations? Is the corporation setting up a compensation fund for those affected? Oh, no, better. Free pizza, actually free pizza coupons. But you know what? Chevron is throwing in a 2-liter bottle of soda as well. I wish I were making this up. In the aftermath of this terrible explosion, Chevron sent 100 gift certificates along with a cheery note from the Chevron Community Outreach Team to town residents. Apparently these people are just supposed to forget about the health and environmental risks associated with living next to a giant exploding fracking rig and lull themselves to sleep with cheese and breadsticks. But you know what would be even cooler than free pizza? Seeing Chevron actually held accountable for poisoning the planet.
use of force lawsuit. A Southland man is suing the Hawthorne Police Department, saying officers used excessive force during an arrest. The man is deaf and says police mistook his hand gestures and thought that he was being combative. Tonight, KCAL 9's Serene Branson is live in Hawthorne with the details. Serene?
And Kent, the South Bay man is essentially nonverbal and uses American Sign Language to communicate. He's suing the city of Hawthorne and the Hawthorne Police Department. In this complaint filed just last week, he claims he was the victim of excessive force and unnecessary roughness, all because of miscommunication and discrimination.
Several officers at some point were on top of him. He was tased several times.
Anna Rivera says her client, Jonathan Meister, a deaf architect from Manhattan Beach, was beaten and injured at the hands of Hawthorne police. The complaint says Meister had his old roommate's permission to go to his old house and retrieve items from the back porch. Someone called police.
Mr. Meister then tried to tell them that he was deaf, using gestures to explain that he was there to pick up his stuff. But it didn't seem like they quite understood.
That's when the complaint says they tackled, struck, and used a taser on him. They arrested Meister for assault, charges that were later dropped.
If the primary way you communicate is to use your hands and you're looking at somebody when you speak, when you go to grab somebody without explaining what's happening and take that method of communication away from them, Mr. Meister became afraid. It's a civil rights case about officers discriminate against someone just because they have a disability and that they don't recognize that someone is deaf.
But Hawthorne police provided a copy of the report showing they recognized Meister was deaf early on and that he tried to resist. Meister's handwritten account to police says he didn't mean to resist. Police released a statement that said in part, officers make every effort to communicate effectively. In almost all cases, it is the person's behavior and actions who we contact that dictate police response rather than the communication barriers present. That is certainly the case in this specific matter. And Rivera said she would have liked to have seen officers attempt to use a pen and a piece of paper. In the meantime, Hawthorne police declined a request for an on-camera interview, but in their statement, they stressed that officers are trained on how to deal with situations where communication can be difficult. We're live tonight in Hawthorne. Serene Branson, KCAL 9 News.
The court has held that the statutory scheme enacted by Parliament, which enables judges to pass whole life orders, is entirely compatible with the European Convention on Human Rights. Judges should therefore continue, as they have done, to impose whole life orders in those rare and exceptional cases which fall within the statutory scheme. Under the statutory scheme, as enacted by Parliament, the Secretary of State has power to release a prisoner on licence if he is satisfied that exceptional circumstances exist which justify the prisoner's release on compassionate grounds. The court has given guidance as to the meaning of that under the domestic law of England and Wales, set out in the judgment. In accordance with those principles, the court has given leave to the Attorney General to refer the sentence imposed upon McLaughlin and has quashed the sentence of 40 years imprisonment and imposed a whole life order. In the case of Lee William Newell, the court has dismissed the appeal against the imposition of the whole life order in respect of Newell.
Top story at 10, a woman is shot and killed by a Bastrop County Sheriff's deputy, and officials are changing their story about what happened.
The Nightbeat's Ashley Godot is in the newsroom now. Ashley, this woman's oldest son spoke with you today.
That's right, Tyler and Terry. He said his soul is numb and that his mother, Yvette Smith, was one of a kind. Now, Bastrop County Sheriffs and the Texas Rangers are investigating the circumstances around her death. This modest house is now missing the person who made it home.
She was a strong-hearted, you know.
47-year-old Yvette Smith, a single mother, lived here with her two sons, Anthony and Chris. This picture of them was taken 18 years ago after her youngest son was born.
Loving and caring, willing to do anything for her children. She worked 3 jobs she had to. If you needed anything, she was willing to give you whatever it was she had.
At 12:30 Sunday morning, Bastrop County sheriffs were called to this home on Zimmerman Avenue. The caller said 2 men were fighting over a gun. We've learned they are father and son. When deputies arrived, one of the men was outside, the other inside. Smith came to the door and was shot by 28-year-old Deputy Daniel Willis. She was taken to the hospital where she died. Initially, investigators said Smith had a gun and didn't follow the deputy's commands. Hours later, they retracted that statement, saying they don't know if Smith had a gun. The homeowner and neighbors say she did not.
This is a big tragedy for everybody because, I mean, you know, we feel unsafe now. I mean, an officer shot somebody without the person being unarmed. You know, it hurts because now you can't trust an officer here.
And it hurts Anthony Bell, who will now have to go on without the guidance of his mother.
She really was more strong. If any issues that she felt like were wrong, that God will look upon and be like, yo, that judgment's not going to pass with me, she will let you know that that's not going to fly. As much as I want to sit here and cry about it, I know she's patting me, just saying, you know, keep your head up, keep trucking on.
No one with the sheriff's office would talk with us on camera today. The 28-year-old deputy who shot Smith started with the department last May. He is on administrative leave pending the investigation. In the newsroom, Ashley Godot, KVUE News Nightbeat.
In this U.S. Border Patrol's third line of defense, agents today catch more people trying to go home rather than escape it.
Laughing at your plate there, I'm sorry. Where are you coming from today, sir?
Why?
I'm sorry?
Why?
Just trying to figure out where you're coming from.
Why? Arizona? Why? Why?
Oh, why Arizona? I thought you were asking me like as in why I'm asking. Oh, okay. And where you heading to now?
I'm not saying.
Oh, okay. This your vehicle, sir?
I'm not saying.
You're not going to say. All right. Do you have the ID on you, sir?
I'm not saying.
You're not saying if you have any ID on you?
No. Peeking and prodding at the public along the nation's highways was allowed for immigration inspection purposes by the U.S. Supreme Court in the 1970s. These suspicionless stops are set up strategically around the country and within 100 miles of U.S. borders. Power, paranoia, and a relentless search for control expands these checkpoints beyond the authority they've been granted. If there's a town called I'm Not Saying, I'm going there.